Welcome to our deep dive today into the fascinating world of cells. You've shared some excerpts from Siddhartha Mukherjee's The Song of the Cell,
Yeah.
and it seems like you're ready to
Go deep.
go deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want those like aha
For
moments,
sure.
the connections between cell biology, medicine, history, the whole shebang.
Exactly. And Mukherjee's a master at that, weaving those connections.
Yeah.
He doesn't just give you the science.
Yeah.
He gives you the stories of people behind it, the patients whose lives were impacted. It's really something else.
Okay, so let's dive in. The book starts with kind of the birth of cell biology.
It does.
Right, we're talking way back 17th century when
Yeah.
the microscope was this like brand new invention.
Brand new. It's amazing to think that just a simple lens could open up this whole universe that you couldn't see before.
Right.
Robert Hooke, who coined the term cells, was looking at a piece of cork under his microscope and saw these tiny compartments, and they reminded him of the cells in a monastery. And then you have Leeuwenhoek, who was completely obsessed with his microscope.
Wow.
He examined everything with it, even the water he drank.
Can you imagine the shock? Finding a whole world of like tiny creatures swimming around in there?
Totally.
But it wasn't just about seeing the cells right.
Right.
It was about figuring out like what they meant,
Yeah.
what they actually meant.
Yeah, and it took a couple hundred years almost
Yeah.
for the idea that, like, every living thing is made up of cells to really catch on. Why was that? Well, back then, people had all these different ideas about what life was
Right.
and where it came from. Some scientists believed in something called vitalism,
Oh.
which basically said that living things had this, like, special life force that couldn't be explained by science. But then comes along Rudolf Virchow, who says all diseases begin at the cellular level. Huge turning point.
Wow. So instead of this like mysterious force,
Yep.
it was all about what was happening inside these tiny cells. That must have blown people's minds. But how did we get from there to understanding that these like teeny tiny organisms, bacteria, viruses,
Yeah.
they were actually the cause of so many diseases? That's a big jump too.
That's where the work of Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch come in. Those guys were pioneers in microbiology. And their experiments proved that microbes were the culprits behind diseases like anthrax, cholera. It's crazy to think that before this, surgeons didn't even wash their hands between patients.
Seriously.
It's wild.
No wonder surgery was so risky back then.
Totally.
So from simple microscopes
Yeah.
to the germ theory of disease.
Big leaps.
It's amazing how much our understanding of cells has changed the face of medicine.
It really has.
But let's like zoom back in on the cell itself.
Okay.
Keep talking about it,
Yeah.
but what's actually happening inside this tiny, tiny building block of life?
So picture a cell like a bustling city,
Okay.
with all these different compartments or organelles, each with its own special job.
I like that, okay?
So the nucleus is kind of like City Hall.
Okay.
It contains the cell's DNA, which is basically the blueprint for life.
Right.
And then you have the mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell.
Keeping the lights on.
Yeah. Generating energy. They're like
Yeah.
the city's power plant, making sure everything runs smoothly.
Okay, so the nucleus is like the control center, and then
Sure.
the mitochondria keep the lights on. But what about like the rest of the city? Are there other key players in this like cellular metropolis?
For sure. There are ribosomes. Those are like factories churning out proteins. Think of proteins as the city's construction workers,
Okay.
building and repairing everything. And then there's this network of membranes called the endoplasmic reticulum. It acts like the city's transportation system,
Okay.
moving proteins and other molecules around to where they need to be.
Wow. It really is like this bustling city in there.
It is. It's busy.
It's incredible how all these different parts work together
Yeah.
in such a coordinated way.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of coordination, let's talk about cell division. Cells have this remarkable ability to divide and create more cells, right?
They do.
How does that even work?
So we've got two main types of cell division.
Yeah.
Mitosis and meiosis. Mitosis is how cells make copies of themselves.
Okay.
It's essential for growth and repair. They're kind of like the city expanding, building new neighborhoods.
Okay, that makes sense. So mitosis is for growth and repair. What about meiosis? What's its role?
So meiosis is a bit more specialized.
Okay.
It's the process of creating sex cells, sperm, and eggs.
Okay.
These cells are responsible for reproduction, passing on genetic information to the next generation.
So mitosis is keeping the current city running,
Uh-huh.
and meiosis is for founding, like, new ones.
Exactly.
That's very clever. But how do cells know when to divide and what type of division to do? Is there, like, some kind of internal control system?
You're spot on. It's the cell cycle.
Okay.
This incredibly precise cellular clock that regulates the whole process of cell division.
Huh.
It's like a perfectly choreographed dance with specific phases and checkpoints to make sure everything happens in the right order at the right time.
Choreographed dance, huh?
Yeah.
So if the music stops or somebody misses a step, things can go wrong.
You got it. And that's actually what happens in diseases like cancer.
Oh.
Cancer cells are basically cells that have lost control of their cell cycle.
Hmm.
They divide uncontrollably, ignoring all the normal signals. So understanding the cell cycle is key to understanding how cancer develops and how we might be able to stop it.
Wow. That's just one example of how understanding cell biology has, like, revolutionized medicine.
Oh, yeah?
Think about in vitro fertilization, where we're literally creating life in a petri dish.
Right.
It relies heavily on our knowledge of the cell cycle and how to manipulate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so from microscopic cities to choreographed dances,
It's a lot.
this is way more complex than I ever imagined. And we haven't even touched on the immune system yet,
Oh, we're just getting started.
which I know is a whole other world of cellular activity.
It is, yeah.
Right. These invaders are everywhere, just waiting for a chance to attack. How does our body even begin to fight them off? What are those cellular soldiers doing?
So it's a complex system, but let's start with macrophages.
Hmm.
Those guys are like the frontline soldiers, engulfing and destroying pathogens.
Oh,
Think of them as cellular Pac-Men, just gobbling up anything that doesn't belong.
I love that, Pac-Man. But what about the invaders that, like, slip past the front lines? What happens then?
That's where B cells and T cells step in.
Okay.
B cells produce antibodies, which are like guided missiles that latch onto specific targets,
Wow.
marking them for destruction. And then T cells are like the special forces. They target infected cells and just eliminate them with incredible precision.
Wow. So it's like a full-scale military operation going on inside our bodies.
It is.
No wonder we feel terrible when we're sick, right?
It makes sense, right?
It's a war zone in there.
Yeah. And then we have these amazing things called vaccines, which are basically training simulations for our immune system.
Oh.
So they expose our bodies to weakened or inactive versions of these pathogens, right?
Great.
And this allows our immune cells to learn how to recognize and fight them off before they can cause real harm.
So like boot camp for our immune cells.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. But what I find really mind-blowing is that scientists are actually engineering immune cells to fight cancer. That just seems straight out of science fiction.
Yeah, that's incredible. We're learning to harness the power of the immune system to target and destroy cancer cells, which is opening up a whole new world of possibilities for cancer treatment.
That's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the potential of cellular medicine. I'm definitely wanting to learn more. This deep dive is just getting started, and I'm already hooked.
Well, buckle up, because we're about to enter a world where damaged organs can be repaired or even replaced using cells. And that's where stem cells come in.
Okay.
These remarkable cells have the ability to develop into different cell types. Think bone marrow transplants, which have already saved so many lives. We're exploring ways to use stem cells to treat so many diseases, from diabetes to heart disease.
Stem cells are like the ultimate cellular superhero.
They are pretty amazing.
But I have to admit, I don't know much about them. What makes them so special? How do they actually work?
Well, let's start with the basics. Stem cells are so unique because they have this amazing ability to develop into different types of cells in the body.
Oh, wow.
Think of them like blank slates.
Okay.
They can be programmed to become anything, muscle cells, nerve cells, you name it.
So they're like the ultimate cellular multitaskers. That's
Yeah.
amazing. But like, how do we actually use them in medicine?
Well, one example is bone marrow transplantation,
Okay.
which has been used for decades to treat things like blood cancers and other diseases.
Mm.
The bone marrow contains these special stem cells called hematopoietic stem cells.
Okay.
And these cells can give rise to all the different types of blood cells.
So in a bone marrow transplant, you're essentially giving someone like a fresh start with a new set of blood-making stem cells.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
That's incredible. But what about like other types of stem cells? Can we use them to repair or replace other tissues and organs?
That's the holy grail of stem cell research.
Oh, wow.
And we're making some really amazing progress.
That's great.
For example, scientists are looking at ways to use stem cells to repair damaged heart muscle after a heart attack, or to treat neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's.
So instead of just treating the symptoms, we could actually fix the underlying damage at the cellular level.
Yeah.
That's revolutionary. But I know there's also been like a lot of controversy surrounding stem cell research.
There has, yeah.
Right.
Some of the most promising types of stem cells, embryonic stem cells,
Right.
are derived from early-stage embryos. And this raises ethical concerns for some people.
Yeah, I can see why that would be a really sensitive topic. But what about adult stem cells?
Right.
Are they a viable alternative?
So adult stem cells are found in various tissues throughout the body, but they're a bit more limited in what they could become compared to embryonic stem cells. But scientists have made this amazing breakthrough.
Oh.
They've found a way to reprogram adult cells back into a stem cell-like state.
But wait, hold on. So we can take like a regular skin cell and turn it back into a stem cell?
You got it.
How is that even possible?
It's called induced pluripotent stem cell technology,
Yeah.
or iPSCs for short.
Okay.
And it's really changed the game for stem cell research and regenerative medicine. Now we can potentially create patient-specific stem cells without those ethical concerns around embryonic stem cells.
Wow, that's incredible. So we're talking about personalized medicine at the cellular level.
We are.
It feels like we're on the verge of a whole new era in healthcare.
It's very exciting.
But all this talk about like manipulating cells, reprogramming them, using them to treat diseases,
Yeah.
it makes me wonder, what are the ethical implications of all of this?
That's an important point. Whenever we're messing with the very building blocks of life, we have to be incredibly careful
Right.
and really think about the potential consequences.
And Mukherjee talks about this in the book, right?
He does.
He doesn't shy away from these like ethical dilemmas surrounding cell biology and its applications.
Not at all. He talks about this controversial case of He Jiankui,
Oh,
this Chinese scientist who used CRISPR technology
right.
to edit the genes of human embryos,
Wow.
which led to the birth of twin girls.
Wow.
This really upset the scientific community
Yeah.
and raised serious ethical questions about gene editing
Right.
and its potential to go wrong.
Wow. Editing the genes of human embryos, that is a huge responsibility.
It is.
Kind of makes you wonder, like, what does it even mean to be human at that point?
It's a big question.
Are we playing God?
That's a question philosophers and ethicists have been wrestling with forever, right?
Huh.
And as we get better at manipulating cells and genes,
Yeah.
these questions become even more important.
It feels like we're entering uncharted territory.
We are, in a lot of ways.
But Mukherjee also reminds us that cells don't exist in isolation.
Right.
Right. They're part of this larger ecosystem, this cellular community.
That's right. That's the idea of cellular ecology.
Right.
And it's so important for understanding how our bodies work.
Right.
Cells are constantly talking to each other, cooperating, computing, influencing each other's behavior.
So it's like this microscopic society with
Yeah.
all these like complex interactions going on.
So
So we can't just focus on individual cells. We
No.
don't need to consider the whole system.
The whole system, yeah.
Right.
Like think about blood transfusions, for example.
Okay.
The early attempts at blood transfusions, they were often disastrous
Really?
because they didn't understand blood type compatibility.
Oh, right. Different blood types can trigger like an immune response.
Exactly.
Right.
It was Carl Landsteiner who figured this out
Okay.
and discovered the ABO blood group system. Our immune systems are so good at recognizing these subtle differences on the surface of red blood cells.
Yeah.
If the blood types don't match,
Right.
the recipient's immune system attacks the new blood,
Oh, God.
as if it's a foreign invader.
Wow.
It was a huge breakthrough for medicine, though. It really showed how important it is to understand these cellular interactions.
It makes sense. Our bodies are really good at knowing what belongs
Yeah.
and what doesn't,
Right.
right? But how does our immune system even tell the difference between self and non-self?
Right.
Like, how does it know which cells are part of our body and which ones are invaders?
It's pretty complex, but basically our immune cells have these special receptors
Okay.
that can recognize specific molecules on the surface of other cells.
Okay.
It's like a cellular ID card.
Oh, interesting.
If the ID checks out, the cell's good to go.
It gets through.
Yeah. If not, it triggers an immune response.
So our immune cells are like border patrol agents,
That's a good way to think about it.
constantly checking ID cards.
Exactly.
But what happens when the system, like, malfunctions?
Right.
What if our immune system starts attacking our own cells?
That's when you get autoimmune diseases.
Oh, no.
So in conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or type 1 diabetes,
Yeah.
the immune system mistakenly identifies certain cells or tissues as foreign and starts attacking them.
Oh, so it's like our own immune system turning against us.
It is
But
unfortunate.
why would that even happen?
Well, the causes of autoimmune diseases are still being researched.
Okay.
It's probably a combination of genes and environmental factors.
So it's like this big mystery that scientists are still trying to solve.
It's complicated.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It seems like the more we learn about cells,
Yeah,
the more we realize how much we don't know.
that's true.
But it's also incredibly exciting, right? These discoveries are like opening up all these possibilities for treating diseases and improving human health.
It's amazing. Mukherjee does a fantastic job of capturing both the wonder and the complexity of this field.
Yep.
He takes you on a journey through the human body,
Yeah.
exploring the incredible specialization of cells within different organs.
Okay, let's take that journey. What are some of the highlights?
Okay.
What are the organs that really showcase this incredible power of cellular teamwork?
Well, we could start with the heart.
Okay.
Each individual heart muscle cell can contract,
Okay.
but it's their coordinated action, beating in unison, that creates this powerful pump that circulates blood throughout our bodies.
It's like a cellular symphony.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the brain with its incredibly complex network of neurons
Right.
communicating with each other through electrical and chemical signals.
I've always been fascinated by the brain. It's just mind-boggling that all our thoughts, feelings, memories, they're all the result of these like cellular interactions.
It is pretty amazing.
And what about the pancreas?
Oh, the pancreas.
This often overlooked organ.
It's so important, though.
It plays a huge role in regulating blood sugar
It does.
through the production of insulin.
Exactly. And Mukherjee tells this fascinating story of diabetes research.
Oh,
From the early experiments that connected the pancreas to blood sugar control
yeah.
to the discovery of insulin, which has saved millions of lives.
It's amazing how these small organs can have
Mhm.
such a huge impact on our overall health. But what about bones?
Okay.
They seem so inert,
Right.
like these hard, calcified structures. What's happening at the cellular level there?
You might be surprised to learn that bones are actually teeming with cellular activity. Yeah. They're constantly being remodeled and repairing themselves, thanks to these special cells called osteoblasts and osteoclasts.
So bones aren't just static. They're like
Yes.
dynamic and constantly changing.
That's right.
That's incredible. I'm starting to see a connection here.
Yeah.
We've gone from the invisible world of single cells to these intricate cellular communities that make up our organs and our entire body.
Oh, come see.
It's like these building blocks. And it's clear that cells don't exist in isolation.
They don't.
They're all part of this much larger interconnected system.
That's a key takeaway from the Song of the Cell. Mukherjee challenges us to think about manipulating cells, not just to treat diseases, but to shape the future of our species.
Whoa, shaping the future of our species. That's a pretty big claim. What does he mean by that?
Well, he talks about things like the ethics of gene editing
Okay.
and the idea of designer babies.
Right.
Imagine a world where we could choose specific traits for our children, like intelligence, athleticism, or even immunity to certain diseases.
That sounds amazing and terrifying at the same time.
It does, doesn't it?
It's a lot of power.
It is. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations now before these technologies are everywhere.
Yeah,
We need to really think about what we're doing and what could happen, both good and bad.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's not just about the science, it's about ethics and society.
Right.
We have to be very careful and wise about how we move forward with all of this.
Absolutely.
But Mukherjee also reminds us that there's still so much we don't know.
There is, yeah.
There's still a lot of mystery surrounding the cell and its capabilities.
Definitely.
And that's what makes this field so fascinating, right?
It really does.
There's always something new to discover, some new puzzle to solve.
That's the beauty of it.
It's like we're constantly peeling back the layers of an onion,
Yeah.
revealing more and more complexity and wonder.
I like that analogy.
And Mukherjee encourages us to embrace that sense of wonder
He does.
and to keep exploring the song of the cell.
Absolutely.
I'm definitely feeling that sense of wonder.
Good.
This deep dive has been a truly incredible journey so far. But we're not done yet, are we? There's still more to explore.
We've only just scratched the surface. There's a whole world of cellular wonders out there.
We'll lead the way. I'm ready to see where this deep dive takes us next.
Okay, let's dive into how Mukherjee connects this cellular world to the larger ecosystem. So we've talked about cells as these tiny cities and these powerful armies inside our bodies, and even as the key to solving some of our biggest medical challenges. But how does Mukherjee connect all of this to the larger ecosystem? It seems like kind of a big jump.
It does, yeah. It seems like a big jump. But I remember we talked about cellular ecology earlier.
Right.
The idea that cells are always communicating and cooperating and competing, just like organisms in an ecosystem.
Exactly. And Mukherjee argues that this same principle works on a much larger scale.
Okay.
So just like cells make up tissues, and tissues make up organs, and organs make up a whole organism.
Right.
All those organisms interact with each other and their environment, and that makes up an ecosystem.
So it's like these nested systems.
Yeah, like Russian dolls.
Each one building on the one before it. Cells inside tissues, tissues inside organs, organs inside organisms, organisms inside ecosystems. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, and it really highlights how interconnected life is at every single level.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, we tend to think of ourselves as separate from nature,
Right.
but we're really a part of it.
Yeah.
Our bodies are full of trillions of cells,
Yeah.
and those cells are always interacting with the world around us.
It is a humbling thought. We're like walking ecosystems.
We are.
But how does thinking about this from an ecological perspective
Yeah.
change how we think about health and disease?
Well, for one thing, it really emphasizes how important balance is.
Okay.
A healthy ecosystem needs a lot of different species interacting in a way that works for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's the same for a healthy body. It depends on this delicate balance of all these different cell types and functions.
So if something disrupts that balance, things can go wrong. Kind of like how an invasive species can mess up an ecosystem.
Exactly.
A cell that's not working right or a gene that's gone rogue can lead to disease.
You got it. And this ecological perspective can give us new ideas for treating diseases.
Oh.
So instead of just going after individual cells or molecules, we can start to think about how to get that whole system back in balance.
So it's more of a holistic approach.
It is.
Instead of just treating the symptoms, we're trying to get to the root cause of the disease.
Exactly. And we're seeing this approach more and more in fields like immunology and microbiome research.
Right. Scientists are starting to understand that our immune system, our gut bacteria, and our overall health are all connected.
Yeah.
The microbiome. That's another area where this ecological perspective is so important.
Right.
It's amazing to think that we have trillions of bacteria living in our gut, and they aren't just hanging out.
Nope.
They're actually crucial for our health.
They really are. And just like a rainforest with a lot of different species is stronger than a monoculture plantation.
Right.
A diverse gut microbiome is linked to better health.
So eating lots of different kinds of foods.
Yes.
And avoiding things like antibiotics that can wipe out our gut bacteria.
Yeah, be careful with those.
Is important for keeping a healthy ecosystem in our bodies.
It all comes back to balance and diversity.
This is fascinating. I feel like I'm seeing the world in a whole new way.
I know, it changes everything, doesn't it?
But I'm curious, where does all of this lead? What's the main message of The Song of the Cell?
I think Mukherjee's main message is one of hope and wonder.
Okay.
He wants to remind us that the cell is more than just this tiny thing. It's the foundation of life.
It is.
And as we learn more about it, we're unlocking all these amazing possibilities for understanding ourselves, treating diseases, and shaping the future.
That's a really powerful message.
He is.
And it's really resonating with me. This whole deep dive has been amazing. I feel like I have a new understanding of how beautiful and complex life is at the cellular level.
That's what we were hoping for.
I'm definitely inspired to keep learning and asking questions and just be amazed by the wonders of the cell.
Keep exploring.
I will. And for anyone listening, I highly recommend reading The Song of the Cell. It's beautifully written. And it will make you think about life in a whole new way. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of cells.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed the deep dive.